So this is the sutta in the Samyutta Nikaya called the sun's flesh. And this is about the 4 kinds of nutriment for the maintenance of being that have from the maintenance of beings that have already come to be, and for the assistance of those about to come to be. But I like to think it's for the maintenance of being, for the maintenance of your being.
Yeah. For the maintenance of bhava.
Yeah. So what for? The nutriment of food, of consumable food, edible food, gross or subtle. Second is contact, phassa. Third is mental intention. And fourth is consciousness. These are the 4 kinds of nutriment. So in terms of the first nutriment of edible food, how should it be seen? And there's a simile that's given. Suppose a couple, a husband and wife, had taken limited provisions and were traveling through a desert. They have with them their only son, dear and beloved. Then in the middle of the desert, their limited provisions would be used up and exhausted, while the rest of the desert remains to be crossed. The husband and wife would think, our limited provisions have been used up and exhausted, while the rest of this desert remains to be crossed. Let us kill our only son, dear and beloved, and prepare dried meat. By eating our son's flesh, we can cross the rest of this desert. Let us all not perish.
Some practical thing in there.
Yeah, so it says, then because the husband and wife would kill their son, who they loved, prepare dried meat, and by eating their son's flesh, they would cross the rest of the desert. But while they are eating their son's flesh, they would cry and become distraught. Where are you, our only son? Where are you, our only son? What do you think? Because would they eat that food
With
for
enjoyment.
amusement or for enjoyment, for the sake of physical beauty and attractiveness? No. Would they eat the food for the sake of crossing the desert? Yes. It is in such a way because that I say that the nutriment of edible food should be seen. When that nutriment of food is fully understood, lust for the 5 chords of sensual pleasure is fully understood. And when that's fully understood, there is no fetter bound by which a noble disciple
Can return.
might return to this world.
Yeah. Yeah, so there you go. Complete this passion towards food. How? By developing the context that will prevent you from having any passion towards it. So that's the simile. The simile is not just a, I don't know, some poetic, shocking emphasis on like how you should know. It's like, imagine eating your own child. How would that feel for survival? Well, now take that context and apply it to any food you eat. That's how it should feel. That's where you need to sustain. Why? Because the mind will completely turn away from any enjoyment, amusement, any lust towards edible food, edible nutriment, which in return will completely remove any attachment and desire towards the 5 chords of sensual pleasure, because that's what it all comes down to.
You wouldn't
Consumption of pleasure. Yeah.
You wouldn't be absorbed into that food, lost.
Oh no. Not just you wouldn't be lost. You would eat only to the point of like survival. You wouldn't eat for the sake of eating, for the sake of chewing, for the sake of consuming, for the sake of enjoying. You would only have one goal in your mind.
So
whenever you eat, whenever you're putting something in your mouth that you are consuming, always bring that context up. And that even before you're eating, actually. When you're about to eat, bring that context up. And then you'll see whether you need to eat and how much. And whether, if there is any passion towards what you are eating, well, it won't be there if you sustain this context. Passion cannot survive in that environment.
But it's not, it's lovely food that I'm about to eat.
It doesn't matter. Who knows, maybe even that boy tasted really nice. Like in terms of the actual taste. but it doesn't mean that at any given time mother and father could have enjoyed it. So it's not that the mouth won't perceive agreeability of the texture or food, but that's completely not the basis for passion. Loss of context is the basis for passion, for the agreeability of the taste and
So
food.
I'm eating, I'm putting this food in my mouth for this body to continue.
Yeah.
So
Why? Why do you need the body to continue?
well, there's that, so I can practice the holy life.
Right, so what does that practice of holy life entail? Do you know what the practice is? Or is it just the idea of, oh, well, I'm practicing by, thinking about practice? So do you see what the practice is? If the answer is no, well, you should really see what the practice is, because none of this then applies to you until then. So doing something about the Dhamma does not constitute practicing the holy life, does not even constitute practicing the Dhamma.
So I would think that's the way I'm eating as well.
No, I wouldn't worry about the way you're eating. If the context is there, it doesn't matter which way you're eating.
Yeah, I'm not talking like slowly,
What do you mean then?
or
Yeah, that's what I thought.
or chopsticks or something.
Yeah, what do you mean then?
No, so I'm having a context of this is going inside the body, for the body, not for
Oh, right. Yeah,
my
sure.
enjoyment.
Sure.
It's not going in me.
Sure. But all of that is kind of psychologizing now. That, like, all of those insights and the way you can describe it are fine if the context is there. The context of eating for the right reason only, not too much, not too little, not overthinking it, certainly not giving in to the enjoyment craving and kind of emotional dependence on agreeable food. But if that context is not there, then you can analyze it and you can visualize it and you can contemplate how it's just in the body and stuff, but fundamentally the passion is still there. So that's why the drastic simile that the Buddha gave, not about, imagine the body is not yours and you're providing food for it and so on. All that's true, but it won't work because the lust is, rooted deeper than that. So what will work is when you don't want to eat it, but you have to. And what will work even more when you don't want to eat it, but you have to, and what you have to eat is what was dearest to you. That's not meant to be eaten. So then it's like there's not a grain of your, of your being would want to be eating it. It will only eat it just to survive, purely. Same, like, the simile of the charcoal pit with burning embers and two men come and want to drag you and throw you in, and then your mind will want to be anywhere else except there. Intention would go in any direction except to the pit.
So why can't I just enjoy my food? Why can't I just eat it?
Because it doesn't belong to you.
Food.
Yeah. Your body doesn't belong to you. So how can you eat the food as if it's yours?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can eat it if you want. You can enjoy it if you want. It's not like, why can't I? Yes, you can. But then you have to suffer the consequences. In the same sense, a fish suffers consequences when it eats the food that he, unwarily, the fisherman puts on a bait. Fish enjoys it. As a result of it, gets hooked. So it's not that we are outlining some moral law here, that you must hate your food and eat it like if it's your only child. Do what you like. Eat and enjoy if you want to. But
what's the danger then?
Well, exactly. There is danger.
What is the danger?
Well, I'm not going to tell you. See it for yourself. You already know that there is some danger. That's the point. Because why would otherwise then life and food and other causes of sensual pleasure be so bent on pleasure and ignoring pain and outrunning pain and sort of being completely maintaining the certain level of unawareness of your own situation? Why do people don't like to think about illness, their own illness, or even illness of people that are dear to them, mortality, aging? Why? Why is that? Oh, so there must be something there that people don't want to admit. Well, chasing pleasure, or food or otherwise, is tied to that. So if you stop and think about it, you would see that maybe, yeah, I could enjoy food, I could enjoy the senses, but what if there is a catch there? And again, even the most untrained mind can see, like what we said in previous talks, even if you don't know anything about the Dhamma, no values or precepts or whatever else, everybody at some point in their life, sooner or later, do get a recognition of what's the point. Like chasing the desires, again, food or otherwise, only results in a very, very temporary satisfaction. And it's not even satisfaction, it's more like forgetting about the pressure.
During that period.
During or a little bit out, doesn't matter. The point is, and then again, and then again, and then again. So you already kind of have a very good inkling that, oh, so there is no end to this, and I'm kind of enslaved by it, and that's not a good position to be in. But hey, I'll forget about that because I'll chase the next desire, and next desire, and next desire. And that's how people go through life. So yes, you can do that. Nobody says you shouldn't. But again, there are the consequences, and you will have to pay the price for it. Price of eating, consuming, and taking all of these things up that don't belong to you. Then when in the end the bill comes, and you realize, oh, now I have to pay for all of that. I thought it was mine. I thought I was the owner. I thought it was free. But it's not. If it were free, it wouldn't be pressuring you so much. It wouldn't be enticing you so much. It wouldn't be trapping you so much. It wouldn't be baiting you so much. There's always a catch.
So when lust for the five causes of sensual pleasure is fully understood, there is no fetter bound by which the noble disciple might come back to this world.
Yeah, so fully understanding that lust and assumptions in regard to the solid food, you will fully understand and remove the ownership of the physical body that depends on the solid food. It won't be taken as yours anymore. By fully understanding the body, as the Buddha said in another sutta, by being fully developed in regard to your own body, you will fully overcome the lust towards the five causes of sensual pleasures. So, therefore, by fully understanding the solid food, you will fully understand the five causes of sensual pleasure.
And the second nutriment. How bhikkhu should the nutriment of contact, phassa, be seen? Suppose there is a flayed cow, a cow with no skin on it. If she stands exposed to a wall, the creatures dwelling in the wall would nibble at her. If she stands exposed to a tree, the creatures dwelling in the tree would bite at her. If she stands exposed to water, the creatures dwelling in the water would bite at her. If she stands exposed to the open air, the creatures dwelling in the open air would bite at her. Whatever that flayed cow stands exposed to, the creatures dwelling there would nibble at her.
Yeah, that's why I like to translate phassa, contact, as pressure.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a impersonal, mechanical or biological contact. Like, it's the mental pressure. Phassa is the pressure to act on account of what you felt. And that's exactly how the cow is feeling. It's not just, oh yes, this is just the ants or whatever insects are just anatomically chewing on my flesh, like as a matter of fact. No, it's pressured, it's harassed, it's annoyed, it's attacked, it's devoured. So it's uncomfortable. So contact is uncomfortable. So do you regard contact, phassa, as uncomfortable? Or do you not even see it as a pressure at all? So in that case, your understanding or your idea of phassa is very inaccurate. And usually it is very inaccurate. People usually think, due to the whole commentarial misrepresentation, like it's like this just a like a physical coming of the senses, and then poof, the result of this is the sight and the sound. As if like, nothing to do with me and I'm not responsible for it. No. Phassa is basically, yes, having eyes and sights, but being pressured on account of what's felt in regard to that. That's what phassa is. So in other words, if people want to understand phassa, want to understand the situation of that cow, find things within your mind where you're emotionally pressured on account of anything. Sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, thought, doesn't matter. If there is a pressure there, if there is a discomfort there, that's where phassa is. And that's what needs to be understood, not psychologically or anatomically explained in terms of sense organs and whatever else, biology and so on. That's not phassa. Because it makes no difference. So imagine the cow being devoured by the insects and you're telling it, oh no, see, this is what's happening to you. Okay, yeah, but I'm still pressured, I still suffer. So that knowledge of explanation of the contact is not freeing me from this discomfort. Thus, it's not the knowledge, because if the knowledge truly pertains to the nature of that phenomena, it would be resulting in freedom from suffering, as the suttas would say. So this full understanding of contact results in you being free from the pressure.
It is in such a way because, as I say, nutriment of contact should be seen.
Yeah.
When the nutriment contact is fully understood, the three kinds of feeling are fully understood.
Exactly. Because that's where the pressure is. It's where the feeling is. So fully understand the nature of pressure, you have fully uprooted any resistance or welcoming towards feelings, respective feelings. So you're completely free from craving, in other words.
By understanding.
Yeah, by understanding the pressure in regard to the currently enduring feeling. Not by explaining it, but by this understanding its nature. That will kind of, result in complete freedom from it.
So you're subjected.
Yeah, so you could look in close, but first you need to feel the pressure.
You need to feel.
Like you can start this abstract questioning and self-interrogation, but you first need to feel the pressure on account of that, whatever feeling's present there, because it's there. Some pressure always has to be there. You can't like, oh, now at the moment I'm in between the contacts. I'm in limbo. No, there's always something felt, which means there's always something pressuring you. Big or small, doesn't matter, pressure's there. So first you need to stop acting out of that pressure habitually, then allow the feeling to endure, then the phenomenon of pressure that manifests in regard to that, then you can start interrogating the properties of it. Which is what we said in previous talk. In itself, the pressure to act is enough. In itself, it does not imply any action.
The pressure.
Yeah, itch does not imply a scratch. Mm-hmm. You assume a scratch because you don't want the itch. You assume the act out of pressure to relieve the pressure because you don't want the pressure. If you remove the gratuitous resistance to the pressure, in itself, pressure is just the pressure. Thus, it's not pressuring you anymore. But for that, the mind needs to be developed in order to see that without giving in to that subtle, I don't want this or I want this.
Mm-hmm.
But the only way to develop it is to endure it sufficiently enough. Not to find the right second or moment in between to catch it. No. How do you become imperturbable? By practicing not being perturbed. By enduring. You'll stop moving. And the pressure to move will fade away because you're not feeding it anymore. But not to practice imperturbability and not moving in regard to everything and nothing. No, in regard to the pressure that's there on account of what you're currently feeling. So that's why you had these misguided ascetic practices where people endured so much yet remained equally ignorant.
Because they moved.
Well, exactly. They were not moving on the level that it didn't matter whether you move or not, but they were moving on the level where it mattered. So you need to find that level of present enduring feeling, and don't move there. Everything else is fine. Everything else is second to it. Everything else will fall in place if you approve the craving on the level where it matters.
So, and the third nutriment, mental intention, mental volition. Suppose there is a charcoal pit deeper than a man's height, filled with glowing coals, with flame or smoke. A man would come along wanting to live, not wanting to die, desiring happiness and averse to suffering. Then two strong men would grab him by both arms and drag him towards the charcoal pit. The man's volition would be to get far away. His longing would be to get far away. His wish would be to get far away from the charcoal pit. For what reason? Because he knows, I will fall into this charcoal pit, and on account of that I will meet death or deadly suffering. So it is in such a way that that I say the nutriment of mental intention should be seen. When that mental intention is fully understood, the three kinds of craving are fully understood. So mental intention should be seen.
Yeah. So what would practically what would be a practical example of mental intention?
I want to go.
It's want. I want. That's it. Wanting. So
I desire.
I want this. I don't want that. Now, you can't I don't want my wanting, or I don't want anything, because that's not what you want.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't just want your way out of your desire. But it is the attitude of wanting. So then, what do you want? Are those wants of yours still pertaining to the 5 codes of sensual pleasure, one way or the other, subtle or gross? Are they still pertaining to, gratuitous assumption of safety in this world, gratuitous assumption of ownership, my own sense of self? Are those wants still revolving around those things? That's what needs to change. That's why the Buddha says, you replace the joys of sensual life with the joys of renunciate life, of a life that says no to sensuality. You replace the miseries, the suffering of the sensual life with the suffering of the renunciate life, because it's better. So it's not optional experiencing joys and miseries for as long as you have the body. But what's optional is what joys and miseries you'll be experiencing, whether they're going to be pure or not, whether they're going to be causing more attachment or not, whether they're going to be causing more infatuation and lust or not. So replace the sensual ones with the renunciate ones and sustain that, and there will be no more problems for you. So you can want everywhere else, you can want anything else except the 5 codes of sensual pleasures, for example. That's it. So stay in that context and you will overcome lust towards sensuality, because you're not feeding it anymore through gratuitous sustaining of wanting it, valuing it.
Anywhere except there.
Anywhere except there. Yeah. So that's, the joys of seclusion used to replace the joys of a household life. Joys of pains of seclusion, pains of renunciation, replace the pains of a household life, which are far worse, far more burdening, and far more carrying much further reaching consequences. Things you do on account of sensuality pertain then, consequences come in lives to come, not just in this one. But pains of seclusion, renunciation pretty much end there. Because there's nothing done on account of it. No other people affected by it, so does not carry the same significance. And yet you used it to now replace all this other burden that would have otherwise caused you so much more hassle. So that's the mental wanting. It's not like that you cannot have it, but you should certainly make sure that none of it is rooted in the domain of the senses, in the domain of, as I said, ownership, and is your wanting based on just pleasure, more pleasure, gratuitous sense of safety, or is your wanting based on practicality, for example? Practicality suitable for practice.
Enough food.
Enough food, enough shelter, enough robes or clothes, enough means to live by. Or is your wanting based on much more than that? So it's replacing the bad wanting with good wanting, let's say like that, in simple terms. And then sustaining the good wanting until you can completely disown even that.
So why is it called nutriment?
Well, because your sense of self, your being, all of your assumptions are fed by it, depend on it, sustained by it. That's why I keep saying sustaining it. It sustains it. Whether you want it or not, through acting, you are feeding it. So it's a direct nutriment for bhava, for ego, for conceit, for everything, for ownership. Vicious circle, yeah.
So food will maintain that bhava. Food is eating.
Well, see, 4 types of nutriment, but what's in common to all those nutriments? They're nutriments for bhava and for your sense of self when you take them wrongly. So right. The one who is free from nutriment of food, an arahant, doesn't stop eating food. But eating food ceases to be the nutriment for his being, because he's eating it like his dead child that he just killed in order to survive. So there is no wanting anymore, no desire, no lust in regard to the nutriment of food. Thus, it has ceased to be the nutriment. Nutriment for bhava, nutriment for his being and misconceptions.
And then contact for him?
Pasa, there is no more pressure. Exactly. Pressure, again, it was your attitude. As I said, itch is enough in itself. Does not require a scratch, nor even imply.
But there's still an itch.
There is still an itch, but it does not pressure towards scratching. It's just an itch. So when you are not developed in regard to the itch, your mind cannot resist the thoughts, the delight, the pressure, the possibility of scratch. Remove the itch. But itch in itself is self-sufficient. It's enough. In itch, there's just the itch. And if you start seeing it like that, you will not be pressured to scratch it. So the pressure for scratching it will fade away.
And then those intentions, that wanting, won't be feeding that bhava either.
Exactly, yeah. So that's why, so the Buddha said, pasa, cannot contact the groundless one, the one that has no ground for that pressure to land. No ownership, no delight, no lust in those thoughts of, what if I only scratch it? None of that. He completely disowned. Thus, the thoughts of scratching do not pressure him anymore. So the itch is there, the thoughts of scratching might be there, but there is no more pressure to scratch. And then even the thoughts of scratching will fade away. And then again, in the itch, there's just the itch. In the scene, there's just the scene. In the hurt, there's just the hurt, and so on.
It's no longer being fueled, isn't it? By
No longer being fueled, yeah.
Nutrients.
Yeah. And same with the wanting.
And the last one, number 4. And how should the nutriment consciousness be seen? Suppose they were to arrest a criminal and bring him before the king, saying, Sire, this man is a criminal. Impose on him whatever punishment you wish. The king says to them, Go, men, in the morning, and strike this man with 100 spears. In the morning they strike him with 100 spears. Then at noon the king asks, Men, how's that man? Still alive, sire. Then go at noon, strike him with 100 spears. At noon they strike him with 100 spears. Then in the evening the king asks, Men, how's that man? Still alive, sire. Then go and in the evening strike him with 100 spears. In the evening they strike him with 100 spears. What do you think, bhikkhus? Would that man be struck with 300 spears being struck with 300 spears experience pain and displeasure on that account. Venerable Sir, even if he were struck with 1 spear, he would experience pain and displeasure on that account, not to speak of 300 spears. It is in such a way because that I say the nutriment, consciousness, should be seen. When that is fully understood, name and form is fully understood.
The all has been fully understood.
So you're saying...
Yeah, so what's the property of consciousness, practically speaking?
Property of consciousness.
Yeah.
What is it?
Yeah.
What is it? Well, presence, life, the...
What do all those things have in common? Even the etymology of consciousness, cognizing. So they're cognized. That's it. So it's the subtlest, obviously. It's the subtlest nutriment. See, understanding the nutriment of food, you'll be an anagami. But there will still be, your like subtler forms of lust and aversion for being, for non-being, and so on. Conceit would be left, and consciousness is pretty much if the subtlest form, the subtlest type of nutriment, because it's on the level of just mere cognizing of things. But are you cognizing those things with implication for me, mine, I am? Or are you cognizing those things as not for me, not mine, not I am, as the Buddha encouraged the noble disciples to regard everything, not for me, not mine, not I am. So anything you cognize. Is it cognized with the implication for me, I am, in regard to this? As Mullapariyaya Sutta says, conceive in, apart from, mine. Or are you cognizing it without all of that?
Why the simile of spears? Why is it?
Well, because it's so subtle that you can't cognize your cognizing correctly. Because any form of cognizing already carries that conceit for me and mine. So the only way to penetrate through that is to, again, same like the simile of eating your own child, to regard it as the most perilous thing in the world, that must not be wanted, and then sustaining that context as the framework for any cognizing that arises until that cognizing is purified. But you can't do it on the level of cognizing, it's just too subtle. And your tool for doing it is cognizing. So your tools are corrupted already. But what you can do is develop the framework of, okay, so any form of cognition, any situation I become self-aware in, is like being struck with a spear. Peril, pain, possibility of death. So what next? Nothing. Sustain that attitude, there will be no more basis for passion and lust to endure and to proliferate. So they will have to, like that heating up the pan, as the Buddha gave that simile. When the pan is really hot, even if you throw a lot of water on it, it will evaporate instantly. So that's how you get rid of the conceit that's affecting your cognizing, by providing a hot pan for it.
That context.
Exactly, context is the hot pan, yeah.
The context of not mine. So whatever you experience.
Well, not just not mine, that's again too abstract. The context of this is my death. This is a spear that I might die as a result of. And again, that's the contemplation of death. If your context of death is in regard to even in-breath or out-breath, there, unchanged, sustaining the context, all the lust, passion, conceit will have to evaporate from your experience, cannot stay there, because the context is just frying it all up.
Dispassioning.
Dispassioning.
So whatever is present, whatever I experience, a sight, a sound.
Well, it's not even, you don't want to start on that particular level. So spear. No. Cognizing. So what is your current situation? What is your current state of mind? What is your current enduring feeling? What's your current body posture? All this level, all this form of cognizing.
Mm-hmm.
So on that general level, on that peripheral level, not I'm cognizing the table, I'm cognizing the book, I'm cognizing the phone. I'm cognizing my current situation of such and such feeling enduring, and I'm sitting here. That's the spear. The broadest context I can find is the spear, and that's how you broaden even that context. Broaden in a sense of develop it further so it becomes even more unsuitable for passion, for carelessness, for ownership. And if it's unpleasant, it's only unpleasant because of your ownership that's there. If there is no ownership, it will not be unpleasant. Same like when you put, disinfecting alcohol on your skin. Unless your skin is broken and infected, it won't hurt. So it hurts only because there is a wound. But if you're really unwise, you would think, oh no, it hurts because of alcohol, thus I won't put the disinfectant on. I'll just let the wound stay because I don't want the hurt. So when you develop the context and it hurts because there is a wound, which means if the wound heals, it will stop hurting without you needing to abandon the context.
So it says here, when consciousness is fully understood, name and form is fully understood.
Anything that can manifest, however subtle, name and form in other sutras the Buddha called the all.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that can be described or designated, thought of, remembered, planned, doesn't matter, past, future, present, has to be within name and form. So means if you fully developed the context in regard to this passion toward cognizing of any kind, anything that can be cognized will be free from passion, will be fully understood, name and form, which is anything that can be cognized. So there's really nothing left to do then. No more conceit, no more basis for conceit or lust. So that's the complete arrangement.
No matter what is cognized, it doesn't matter.
Cognized is just the cognized.